Why, hello there. Welcome to my humble, masculine, minimalist abode. Might I interest you in a beverage? While I have you here, have you ever wondered why the male living space exists? Why those stupid gendered products exist? Why dinguses like Clavicular and Andrew Tate have such massive followings? Wait, no? You haven't? Well, the door is gone, so you can't leave! For the past couple of months now, I've been trying to complete two main quests. The first is to find a form of creatine that I can take that doesn't feel like a CIA torture technique, and the second is to find a good book for men. No, not the boobs and explosions kind, but I do like those. You see, I have rather severe ADHD and a general brain not function good syndrome, and my psychiatrist suggested that I take creatine because apparently it is good for the muscles in your brain as well as the muscles in your body. The second surprisingly Sisyphean task I have assigned myself is to find a book on masculinity to help me understand some unpleasant feelings I have about my manness, since, let's be honest folks, we men are looking pretty bad these days. For over a decade now, The Will to Change by the persistently relevant bell hooks has been my go-to for this, but I wanted to find something new to sink my very masculine teeth into. Now, I know books for men can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, from fictional stories to self-help nonsense to philosophy books that trick you into thinking you're controlling your emotions better when in reality you're simply painting a landscape under the wall of your prison. And all of those are fine and dandy, but right now I wanted a good socio-cultural structural analysis to just inject into my veins. I mean, there's plenty of that flavor of tone about womanhood and femininity, so I don't know, there should be some more besides this one book out there for men, right? Like, maybe even written by a man, right? Right? Oh, and I know some really smart people are gonna be saying shit in the comments like, books aren't gendered, I just read whatever I want. To which I simply say, thank you so much for sharing. Wow. Here's a juice box. It's half drunk, but you know, go sit over there and listen, okay? You see this bell curve meme? You're here. You're right up here in the middle, where it's like, no, things aren't gendered. Oh, would you boo boo boo? I want to take you here, okay? I want to take you here. It's where I am. It's where a lot of people are. It's great. We have fun, very satisfying. You know, those chips, fantastic. Because remember, no matter what you are, whether you are man or woman, queer, non-binary, straight, cis, gay, bi, white, not white, intersex, trans, disabled, ace, agender, or you read whatever you want, we live in a society reference, of gendered objects and are all affected by how society defines men and masculinity, which is extremely cis, straight, white, and able-bodied. And I think that is very much worth examining. Anyways, Will to Change is one of the most important books on men and masculinity that I have ever read because it's one of the very few that takes the time not just to address the importance of feminism for all, but sympathetically addresses issues men have under the patriarchy, all while criticizing bad feminisms, shall we say, which are harmful to every person that touts them. That is no easy feat. However, when it came out, I was 11, and I am very much not 11 anymore based on the sounds my body makes whenever I try to move around. And as much as I love it, I'm very curious about the prospect of something a little bit newer to peep masculinity-oriented insights from, given the staggering amount of new ways the world and men have gone to shit over the last 20 years. However, I will be the first to admit, though, that I think we have also gotten a lot more open and inclusive in a lot of ways and places, which is very cool. But also not that in a lot of others, which is not very cool, and that duality is very much what fuels my search for answers. As I was on the verge of making a deal with the devil to fix my brain and scraping the underside of every bookstore in a 100-mile radius to find this mythical masculine manuscript, I stumbled upon an artifact that stopped me dead in my exceptionally manly tracks. Man cereal. The self-proclaimed world's first creatine cereal that looks like it was birthed from the unholy orgy of an Apple employee, a fitness bro, and an alpha male podcaster. This cereal, which specifies no estrogenics and has the tagline, "Add some balls to your breakfast," feels like it was designed in a lab to incorporate every terrible aspect of masculinity society claims it doesn't want men to have. Deeply insecure, irony-poisoned, emotionally stunted, grind-set, maxed, anti-whimsy, and irrationally rigid in what a man ought be, this gendered commodity prosthetic is the opposite of what I and all men should want. And yet, it exists. Like so many others I'm sure you have seen in this world if you have been alive for more than 5 seconds. Tactical baby gear, disguised makeup for men, energy powders with anime titties on them, man sheets? Man sheets? Thoughts and prayers for the straight men. Thoughts and prayers. The fact that I can find a fucking cereal brand that describes its flavors as confident, legendary, and sigma, but I can't find an actually good, non-misogynistic, non-hustle culture book systemically analyzing why I'm afraid of men and women for different reasons, really has my cortisol levels spiked. And that spiking has led to new quests I knew I had to solve. Why does man cereal exist? Why can't I find this gosh dang book? And what in the world is going on with men? How do you control this thing? Boy, I sure hope Nakey Jakey doesn't have white guy on green screen on sphere type object copyrighted, or I'm gonna get sued like another Noah who's going through legal troubles right now. Anyways, because it gives important context and will also be very funny, I'm going to perform a socio-cultural visual disembowelment of a cereal brand. And if that wasn't what you were hoping for in this essay, well, that is your problem and not mine. I'm throwing another sponsorship opportunity down the drain for this, so you guys better subscribe and check out the Patreon. For an expensive ass cereal brand that wants you to believe it's a high performance, bold, and no BS option, I would have expected them to put a little bit more effort into the look and feel of basically everything, because let's be honest, the copy isn't really doing any heavy lifting here. Muscles joke. Very much like the high-performance man it's trying to advertise to, it looks sleek and impressive until you realize it's kinda just creatine and sexism. It's a brand built off of shock value rather than any real substance, like the internet's most recent guy they're not taking seriously enough, Clavicular. I wonder if he's gonna come up again later. Better stick around to find out. And shout out to his trend of randomly saying the N-word for engagement.
I think I can say the N-word. I think I can say it.
Why you think it doesn't matter?
Well, because I'm just kind of like a free-spirited guy. Like, I don't really think about like social constraints and shit like that.
Shout out to my last video. Now, you don't need to be a designer like me to notice how, to be blunt, cheap and lazy basically everything feels. However, since I am one, I can go into why with excruciating detail. The single bit of praise I can give them is using the font Neu Hosk Grotesque, and yes, it is pronounced Neu, for their logo. It's very nice, I have used it myself, and think of it basically like a better version of Helvetica, which is basically the font for freshman design students who just discovered Josef Müller-Brockmann, and brands who want to appear neutral while committing crimes against humanity. Shout out to Nestle, Microsoft, and Dole. Speaking of which, the font man cereal uses for everything else is Helvetica. And they can't even be bothered to adjust the letter spacing in most places so it looks nice either. For you designers out there, that's the kerning and the tracking. Like the text on the website and the box has different kerning everywhere. And as a designer, this makes me want to personally strangle whoever did this. The box itself is very obviously just trying to be an Apple product while proving that the people who made it do not have the attention to detail or the taste to make anything close to the same level of quality. The composition on the front is not only completely absent of any of the boldness that they claim to have, but the poor use of scale actually makes the product feel vacuous and empty. Plus, the obvious question is, of course, why isn't there 2 pieces of cereal on the front? The tagline is add some balls to your breakfast. So why is there not a balls joke on the box? They have it as an ad, which looks fucking terrible. They have the confidence to include their impressingly unappetizing descriptors for each flavor, dominating, legendary, and sigma. So why not have the balls joke on the box? The weirdest part about the box, though, is in the bottom back corner on each box, for some reason, has this weird PNG of cereal crumbs. Like, when I first opened the box, I thought this was a mistake. I thought it was dirty or leaking, but it's just on there for some reason. Like, you could have done 10 million other things with the amount of space you have, but you had to make it look like your box was damaged. Why? The same befuddlement can be generated from looking at the questionable aesthetic choices of their baffling website. I mean, my God, near as I can tell, this is just like a Shopify template from looking at the source code. So this should just look pretty nice outside of the box. Haha. But the consistency of everything is about as aligned as my chakras. Not at all. I am quite mentally unwell. The first image that you behold on the top of their homepage is bowls and boxes of cereal on a table with an incredibly half-assed black gradient on the left side that doesn't even go all the way to the bottom of the image, and it's also grainy as fuck for some reason. As we scroll down, we are met with an image of a muscular man staring intensely at a bowl of cereal, and I can't tell if he looks like he's about to fight it or make love to it. Down below our confused gentleman, there is also, I'm pretty sure, a giant AI image of someone taking a bite of the cereal. Like, look at the teeth. Those aren't normal human teeth. This is just above their Mankind Has Spoken section, where they proudly show off videos they have paid F-tier influencers to make, and yes, they look and sound exactly as weird and obnoxious as you're imagining.
The other cereals, go get you some man cereal. The first cereal in the world with creatine in it. It's a force.
The fruity flavor, it's a straight fire. Just add milk and you'll get the crunch from the cereal, followed by sweet and salty goodness that will get your mouth watering.
Continuing our journey over to the About Us page, it has an image at the top which I legitimately can't tell if it's photoshopped or the lighting just looks so bad it appears that way. And then below it is their first desperate attempt to make themselves look funny and not wildly insecure. More on that later. This image of a guy raising his eyebrow and a dog doing a funny jump and cereal flying around in what feels like ChatGPT's answer to the question, what image can I make to get people to laugh with and not at my sexist cereal brand? I do enjoy the juxtaposition of this image with the one right below it, which is a man holding a handful of cereal in what appears to be a gym in a pose reminiscent of somebody who is about to scatter grandma's ashes over her favorite slot machine. Then at the bottom is another haha funny image of a woman, the only image of a woman on the site, by the way, pouring what I'm guessing is prototype cereal into a guy's mouth next to the illuminating the birth of a man's cereal section, which is another attempt to convince you, the prospective very manly buyer, that the people who made this, quote, don't take it or ourselves too seriously. Little bit of a weird thing to say when you're trying to convince people that something you spent months working on is worth buying, but what do I know? I only work in marketing. The dudes behind Man Cereal are obviously trying to make you feel like you are buying the creatine scaffolded luxury condo of cereals. Minimalism and bluntless, leveraged for implied status above the competitors. But do you know what this product actually reminds me of? The male living space meme. TV on the floor, a chair that isn't even meant for inside. There's not a decoration in sight, and you know there aren't any out of sight either. A life of pure functionality, optimal performance. No BS. But to anybody who doesn't live like this, they know that this aesthetic isn't minimalism through intention. It is an apathetic preference for utility wearing the skin of aesthetic because they were conditioned to see whimsy and personalization as the enemy. I mean, juxtapose this with a brand like The Ordinary, for example, that is all in on minimalism without the desperate cringe branding, and anybody can see that it is night and day. The Ordinary is the precision Man Cereal wish it has, because Man Cereal is anything but. Their visual landscape of D-tier fitness influencer model meets guy who copy-pasted the code for Apple's website, and the need to specify no estrogenics is what they believe the ideal man would and should desire. The awkward variety of images are their floor TV. The bumbling copy is the lawn chair in the middle of the living room, and the knockoff Apple aesthetic is their rather depressing lack of any decoration. This line in their about page, "Incraveable flavors wrapped in a brand that actually speaks to men," is an admission that this is how they see, understand, and cater to the idea of the perfect man. Pure function, no whimsy, everything should be a means to an end. A Better Man by comedian Michael Ian Black is one of many all right to terrible man books I have read in my journey so far, and it is suitably pretty all right. I will give him credit though. In his book, Black does astutely make the observation that traditional masculinity funnels the full range of male emotion into two channels: anger and withdrawal. The wise Bell Hooks has made similar observation of this as well, such as this one found in The Will to Change. Patriarchy creates both rage in boys and then contains it for later use, making it a resource to exploit. Why yes, my good cereal merchant, I would like one box of Man cereal for the low price of my ability to understand my own emotions. I have noticed that commodities used to perform masculinity, as well as the people who make those performances, explicitly fall into representations of one of those two categories per Black's and Hook's observation: anger or withdrawal. Man cereal is obviously withdrawal. It is the visual absence of expression, function distilled into a creatine orb of idealized masculinity, and a fear that if you try to move beyond it, you will be ridiculed and expelled from the defective mythology you are told you must maintain. Products like tactical baby gear and gamer subs are also obviously anger. Loud, vulgar declarations exclaiming that you, the man, are not only allowed to engage in insert normal activity here, but should colonize it with your intense masculine energy. Militarizing your baby's carrier and putting huge honkers on your supplements is the aggressive gendering of a neutral act to make men feel like they are allowed to do the bare minimum, like taking care of their child. And the ultimate cruelty I see so many people not understand in wondering why things like this exist is that the market confirms this. It is so very profitable to be the asshole and not the nice guy, so to speak. These products aren't creating a demand for them. They are responding to a reward structure that was already there. Things like Man cereal and their messaging are not just giving permission to men to be a man, but act as the makeup and accessories they require to succeed in their performance of manhood.
It's a straight fire.
And to be clear, gender performance isn't inherently bad. We are all doing it in some way to achieve the gender euphoria that we all desperately want. I like painting my nails. Oh my, I forgot to paint my nails before this. Hold on. As I was saying, I like painting my nails. Some people like wearing dresses. Some people like wearing pants. Some people like having their hair cut a certain way or wearing makeup. I once knew a trans guy who said, and I will never forget this, bargaining and haggling for a good deal gave him gender euphoria. Incredible. But things like that really can't be the source of where your validation comes from, because then you will just be reliant on them. And that is not good. Also, OPI, if you want to sponsor me, I love your stuff. I take your money. That is specifically what Man Cereal and all this other garbage wants you to do. In a fucked up way, it's like gender affirming care, but evil. And to be clear, while I do think the gender affirming care jokes for ridiculous objects are not only funny but also true, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that trans people's life-saving affirming care, which is significantly harder to acquire and maintain, is infinitely more important than someone who needs masculinized cereal to feel comfortable eating breakfast. Everybody should be able to have access to a wide variety of gender affirming care, but when we make our little jokes, let's not pretend who is actually in need of it. And speaking of funny, remember when I said that Man Cereal keeps desperately trying to convince you that it is that? Serious nutrition, unserious name. Cereal for men with no gimmicks or BS. And it's funny. Not everything needs to be so serious. We started Man Cereal because we love health and fitness, but we don't take it or ourselves too seriously. This is why I am specifically talking about Man Cereal, because the thing that fascinates me the most about it, out of all of the man products I've talked about, is that it's the most insecure about what it is, despite being the most aggressive about it. I mean, everything from the baby gear to even shit like Dude Wipes, Hims, Dr. Squatch, they own what they are. They are honest about it, but Man Cereal doubts its own premise by the time you've gotten to the bottom of the homepage. Man, I am really not good at this for how long I've been painting my nails. They literally posit the question in their FAQ, can women eat it too? And then admit it might actually be better for women. Right below that, they preempt the question, is this a joke? But only in the FAQ on their homepage though, even though the same FAQ is on their about page minus that single question for some reason. Attention to detail. Why would they go through the effort of making this entire brand around men and then immediately back down? They say that men are tragically eating less cereal, but no data that I have found has been able to confirm this is true. Shocking that there are no gender-based cereal studies. The closest thing that I have found is that age is a far stronger predictor than gender for eating cereals. Apparently, gender eats the most. Gender? Gen Z eats the most. Boomers eat the least. And additionally, creatine, their primary man-luring ingredient, is growing in popularity. But with a lot of the people they're not targeting, like women and non-workout folks looking for brain juice like your boy. To put this into perspective here, we have a niche product for a demographic they have selected for quite literally cultural reasons, wrapped in a brand explicitly alienating to the growing audience of their primary ingredient. And they're funny, I guess. There really isn't a way to tell how successful they actually are. Only time will tell, since they've really only been around for less than a year. But right now, I'm not really interested in their possibility of success, because there's a different, more important, burning question that I'm sure we all have. What the fuck is funny, man? Like, if they're not the joke, what is? Ugh, I had to change my shirt because it's getting hot in here and summer's coming and I can't have my AC on while I record or else it fucks up my audio and my life is so hard. Why is my life so hard? Okay, stop me if you've heard this one. Someone next to you says something attempting to be funny when they're really just saying something sexist, racist, or targeting anyone vulnerable. Like, I don't know, a certain group of people. You respond confused, saying something like, "Hey man, that wasn't really funny. That just sounded pretty mean and weird." Then they, irritated and aghast, say something akin to, "Calm down, bro. It's just a joke." Sound familiar? It's probably because it's literally everywhere, constantly, all of the time. Like, take this random Reddit thread of a video of a man racing his baby daughter with a super weird caption about controlling her dating life. Very predictably, there's a lot of people and many upvoted comments akin to, "It's just a joke, what are you people being weird about?" in response to people rightfully pointing out how incredibly weird it is to caption your video like this. Man racing baby is an inherently funny concept. You could put so many funny captions on this. Why did you have to pick the weird one about controlling the dating life of your daughter who can't even walk yet? Anyways, entirely unrelated, let's return to their FAQ that has the "is this a joke" question in it. The answer that they offer is, predictably, nope. I think that's enough reading now. Get on with your day. Does that happen to remind you of anything that I just told you about like 10, 15 seconds ago? Yeah, me neither. That dissonance between what is being shown and what people say is being said is called irony. And it is the fertile soil that has allowed this state of being to grow nearly uncontrolled for a very long time, particularly in the boys. Wait, no, not that boys. Oh, Oh my God, mentioning the absolute dog shit series The Boys accidentally sent a shockwave through my room, shattering my cereal. Oh, I thought I was about to tumble through the void to my death, but thankfully this massive stack of man cereal cushioned my fall. Whew. 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 Anyways, in 1993, David Foster Wallace wrote an essay called E Unibus Plurum that described exactly this mechanism, 30 years before anybody had the terminology of what we call today irony poisoning. His argument was basically that television had industrialized irony as a cultural mode, trained an entire generation to be in on the joke before the joke was even made. Television both fears irony's capacity to expose and needs it. It needs irony because television was practically made for irony. For TV is a bisensuous medium. Its displacement of radio wasn't picture displacing sound, it was picture added. Since the tension between what's said and what's seen as irony is the whole sales territory, classic televisual irony works not via the juxtaposition of conflicting pictures or conflicting sounds, but with sites that undercut what's said. People saying or doing some questionable thing and then hitting the emergency "it's a joke" button is exactly this phenomena. I'm dying. And some people are just constantly slamming that button to avoid having to do any form of self-critique without realizing that they're even hitting it. That is what we call irony poisoning. It is a suit of armor that doubles as a prison, a paradoxical state of existence where one's inability to be sincere is sincerity in and of itself. It's a language that the more you become fluent in it, the less of others you understand. That sounds like it would be a really sick idea for an SCP, actually. I'm copywriting that. Original character, do not steal. This overlaps with broader society's long-term mandate of telling men that they are legally not allowed to have emotions that aren't anger or because then irony can easily fill in the emotional void from that cultural conditioning. It's why so many men legitimately believe that they can have no problems with women, their own self-sabotaging visions of masculinity, or think weird, gross things that they say are not actually weird and gross, despite the people who are not irony poisoned telling them explicitly that they're being weird and gross. It is the perfect defense mechanism to protect one's delicate feelings from critique. And I find this dynamic quite amusing because the big issue with irony and being irony poisoned is that it keeps you in an exclusively critical mode of existence. Because irony can deflate and tear down and pull apart hypocrisy quite well, but it cannot build anything to actually replace what was once there. To quote Wallace, irony is singularly unuseful when it comes to constructing anything to replace the hypocrisies it debunks. That's why people who are so deeply entrenched in this mode of living seem like they kind of go along without having much of a vision beyond what benefits them and really just kind of follow a status quo. Criticizing ideas and constructing them are two completely separate modes of operation. Men on the internet who engage in alt-right rhetoric, for example, the most extreme being Nick Fuentes and his groypers, weaponize irony to hide their bigoted or even white nationalist beliefs from outsiders, which has been documented by places like the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. The groypers et al. Use memes and dumb-looking frogs and a bunch of bullshit that seem absurd to be attached to the most hyper-conservative ethos of basically taking us back to the Dark Ages, but that is what makes it so effective. There's a lot of guys doing similar things in less radical groups like, you know, the gamers complaining about a bunch of culture war stuff, or the weird drama guys on YouTube too. Shameless video plug again. This is an example of misogyny and white supremacy acting as bonding practices for men, which is one of the reasons why they occur so frequently. You know, the old ball and chain, am I right, fellow men? These kinds of mentalities in men are also amplified by, you know, things like intense economic hardship, deteriorating communities, and the active presence of fascism, which all of those just happen to be happening right now. Weird. Anywho, as some people increasingly make more and more use of emergency irony to deflect any sense of feeling attacked or to disarm any critique of behavior because they lack the emotional or critical skills to process those things, the occasional irony ailment shifts to a state of constant disease, and then boom, you've been irony poisoned. Cultural critic Lewis Hyde puts it in a single sentence that Wallace quotes: "Irony has only emergency use. Carry over time, it is the voice of the trapped who have come to enjoy their cage." That is the branding of man cereal. That is the entire product shelf for this kind of stuff in total. It's a lot of deflation and zero construction. Man Cereal has intentionally preempted the joke question because they know every non-Sigma type person is going to ask it. Like, they have even made shitty fucking memes about it on their very sad Instagram page. Good lord.
Would you show us your feet for a free box of Man Cereal? Excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you show us your feet for a free box of cereal?
Well, what is it though?
It's a high protein cereal, and then it's got creatine and no sugar.
You would literally never know. It's so good. Dog's already out.
Perfect.
That is the armor of irony functioning in real time. Acknowledge the absurdity, dismiss the inquiry, and then just move on. This kind of deflection isn't just incidental to the brand, it is the brand. And it works specifically because if you push back, you look like the humorless person who can't take a joke about cereal. And if you don't push back, then the message lands anyways. I mean, shit. They say that women can eat man cereal too, right? Like, that it's even better for them. It's great. How can they be sexist then? Add some balls to your breakfast. Genius. Brilliant. Oh my God. They don't hate women. They don't patronize men. They're just being funny. But and this just might be my gay woke opinion here, but their joke isn't really funny. And to be crystal clear, the joke is sexism, like in both directions. There is no incredible galaxy-brained meta-humor analysis to be performed to decipher the comedic genius on display here. The fact that this is called man cereal and built around gender essentialism is what's funny. And they preempt being laughed at because, you guessed it, that is the worst thing that can happen to a group of people who are so desperately afraid of looking foolish. As Margaret Atwood infamously put it, men are afraid women are going to laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will kill them. And that's true. That's true as fuck. Women laugh at men too much. What's so insidious about this, though, is that the joke doesn't need to be funny, as we've seen. It just needs to exist in an environment that makes the question look stupid. Man cereal mocking itself and man cereal meaning what it is trying to say about men and creatine and grind set shit are not in tension. They are working together. The mocking is the delivery mechanism for the sincerity. All self-mocking irony is sincerity with a motive. This Lewis Hyde guy seems smart as fuck. Man cereal doesn't tell men who they should be because its irony-coated creatine orbs are incapable of building a vision for men that exists outside of the status quo. It is only signaling what men shouldn't be, which is apparently anybody who eats regular cereal. I fucking love Reese's Puffs, dude. I'm gonna eat that shit until the day I die, and nothing is gonna stop me. You've probably figured this out already, but the irony armor isn't about not caring. It's about not letting anybody else have the power to mock you while you enjoy your extremely manly breakfast. However, a downside here is that the eye holes in the armor are so tiny that you can't see the monkey's paw curling outside of your very tiny field of vision. Speaking of monkey's paw, Obsession was great as fuck. This is a good ass movie. You should go see it. To return to our acquaintance Michael Ian Black, he is a comedian who spent an entire career building a persona based exactly on this irony-soaked withdrawal, which he openly states in A Better Man. I cultivated an entire comedic persona based on withdrawal. Sarcasm is a form of withdrawal. I was good at it because at that point in my life, I had invested years into learning how to act as if I didn't care about anything. He became quite successful doing this, which is why it's quite fascinating that he describes it with the retrospective of clarity of a man who has done a lot of therapy as fundamentally dishonest. It is dishonest because it's a form of lying to yourself ad infinitum until you don't even know what is true anymore. At one moment in the book, he talks about attending his grandma's funeral in a completely robotic state, so walled off in part due to the repeated indoctrination of stuff like be a man, suck it up, that attitude that men are told they need to perform to be a man. I thank people for coming and reminisced with my brother. I did all the things I was expected to do, dry-eyed and composed, no whining, numb, angry with myself for my numbness. I have lived with the tourniquet so long I didn't know how to release it. This act of a man working to build a persona that lives up to the patriarchal standards is inherently an act of self-betrayal. And man cereal is that persona applied to breakfast cereal. Somebody built it, somebody packaged it, and is selling it for $19.99 a box. Yes, that's the real fucking price. You can go look it up if you want. It's ridiculous. It is emotional manipulation in service of selling you permission to exist as the hollow shell of what remains. Something meant to make the suffocation and silence you endure feel acceptable. I'm focusing on men here, but obviously I have to mention that different kinds of silence is very familiar to many women and queer people and basically everybody too. People of color, disabled folk, ace people. Nobody ever fucking talks about ace people like ever. Have you noticed that? To quote Rebecca Solnit, each of us exists in a complex of many kinds of silence, including the reciprocal silences we call gender roles. Many men, including myself, have a nebulous before and after phase of their use that signaled when their programming kind of started. A blurry divide when we felt unmoored as children, too constricted by this patriarchy we were supposed to benefit from. Men had an untethered emotional exuberance, as Hooks calls it, or were a golden ball, not the dan-to-dan kind, which is what the author of Iron John, Robert Bly, another man book we will be talking about, calls this state of wholeness that we lose before society splits us into being male and female, rich and poor, good and bad, blah, blah, blah. Bell Hooks in Will to Change names the mechanism underneath this more precisely than anybody else I have ever seen. There is only one emotion that patriarchy values when expressed by men. That emotion is anger. Anger is the best hiding place for anybody seeking to conceal pain or anguish of spirit. Irony is anger's polite cousin. It is contempt without the exposure. It lets you hold the world at arm's length while insisting that you just don't care that much, all while you hide a simmering rage just below the surface. And part of this I cannot emphasize enough is that you don't have to consciously sign up for this kind of ideology to reproduce it. You just have to live in a culture where it's the water. And especially if you have learned that that water is extremely commercially valuable. I mean, let's be real here. It wasn't I and so many other men's faults that we grew up as emotionally stunted bags of testosterone. We never simply saw much validation for anything else. Basically, all of the men I grew up around, including my dad, who, while he has absolutely come a long way, was an unreadable obelisk of a man, and that is what I thought I had to do too. Men and women regularly hit me with the "be a man, suck it up, only girls cry" when I was a kid, and obviously I didn't and still don't want to be a girl. Believe me, I've tried the whole trans thing. It's not for me. I want to be man, mostly. So there is only one solution here. No crying. Oh, speaking of crying, all gone. Goodbye, brave soldier. But they told me these things not trying to make my life worse. That is just what they knew. You know, just because somebody gives you useless dog shit advice doesn't mean it doesn't come from a sincere place. But, and this is very important, that doesn't excuse any harm that comes from that dog shit advice or the way we were socialized. Well, understanding these things can give insight as to why any harm anybody commits to a woman or other men or anybody is not excused simply on behalf of how one was raised. I handled some relationships super fucking poorly. I said some mean, weird, gross things to people when I was younger. I cannot change that, but I can work to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. This can be a hard pill for people to swallow, but coming to terms with the fact that everybody, including you and me, have some latent misogyny, as well as some racism, some homophobia, all that good stuff inside of them is important to know, and that doesn't mean that we are bad people. It means that we were raised in a deeply flawed culture that we have to be aware of in order to continually unlearn. But if you ignore that and just say whack shit, then you kind of are a bad person. Like, oh, I don't know, Twitch streamer Asmongold recently saying that black people are genetically inferior.
Conditions is a cope and everyone knows it.
Yes, correct.
I mean, this is the Elon Musk style. No, they are genetically inferior and socioeconomic conditions are a cope.
They are. It's a fact.
Anyway, speaking of whack shit, Robert Bly, whose 1990 book Iron John is basically the founding text of the men's mythopoetic movement, astutely points out that the industrial community has for generations quietly pushed men away from the parts of themselves that aren't productive. Think the grind set shit, the whimsy genocide, the suppression is so old. It is so old and so total that so many men do not even know what they're reaching for. Probably reaching for boobs with this gesture. They're just trying to find something that feels real. And too many men, for a while, including myself, that suppression itself was vaguely gesturing in the direction of that realness that they were looking for. Man cereal is an example of the industry building an object for that gesture to be pointed towards. All of these products are, all of these books are, they are sincere attempts at manufacturing that realness. It's that sincerity which, even if flawed, makes it so challenging to argue with people who believe it, even on the most extreme ends of this. Not because it's hard to crack their arguments in half, because let's be honest, it's actually extremely easy, but because they're such staunch believers in it, it becomes significantly harder to talk them out of it. Man Cereal's founders genuinely believe that they saw some gap here. Self-help authors like Robert Bly think they've figured out how to fix men. Every hustle culture podcaster has what's left of their hearts invested in their hyper-capitalist version of success as their version of a solution. This entire apparatus is built by people who mean it. And this is why my whole book search hasn't worked out. I'm finding shelves upon shelves full of men who genuinely want to help men, writing earnestly and at length, completely inside the framework they are trying to examine, unaware that they are blissfully making the problem worse. However, the real issue that makes combating these false prophets way harder than it should be is that a lot of the time, they're kind of right. And ignoring that only keeps making the problem worse. So sometimes we gotta listen and figure out what they're actually saying. Let us get off this creatine coaster for a minute and return to my book search, but don't worry, Man Cereal's not going anywhere. I, like many people, absolutely hate agreeing with people that they do not like. Flat out, it sucks ass. Our egos do not like to recognize when somebody we don't like actually has a good point. And I think that this can manifest in a lot of ways that hurt us in the long run. I have been having to check myself on this front as I peruse the many man-coded things in this masculine world I have ventured into, because there's a lot more salient observations in these books than one would kind of expect, even if, to be clear, the solutions that they have are pretty much all terrible. For example, the little bits of Iron John that I've mentioned so far seems like it has some pretty fair observations, saying things like, we have defective mythologies that ignore masculine depth of feeling. That is objectively true. And going so far as to name industry, as I said previously, as the reason for said suppression, is extremely cognizant of him. For generations now, the industrial community has warned young businessmen to keep away from Iron John. However, the problems begin to happen when we observe his solutions, because they basically all come from Robert's narrow obsession with ancient and non-Western rituals, which serve as a bit of a framework for how he thinks that older men do not teach younger men how to be a man anymore. The titular Iron John character, as per the book's namesake, is this ideal masculine guide, a Sherpa, if you will, to teach younger men to be men, and thus eventually become the Iron John themselves. The moment the boy leaves with Iron John is the moment in ancient Greek life when the priest of Dionysus accepted a young man as a student, or the moment in Eskimo life today when the shaman, sometimes entirely covered with the fur of wild animals and wearing wolverine claws and snake vertebrae around his neck and a bear head cap, appears in the village and takes the boy away for a spirit instruction. In our culture, there is no such moment. Okay, look, you can make a, I'd say, pretty reasonable argument that mentorship as a whole has completely gone down the drain and deteriorated as a result of broader community deterioration over time. I don't think most people would argue with this. But fetishizing ritual from ancient Greek to Inuit ceremony as a formula for teaching men to be men not only feels very awkward to read, but is not really making the sweeping structural changes needed to even allow the possibility for men to do a crazy shit in the woods regularly. The 9 to 5 goes crazy. I would quite like to be dripped the fuck out in, cool fur and claws and vertebrae and shit. That sounds badass. There's so much like warrior myth making in here too. Like it's such a massive part of the book. Like this. We know that more than one American man today needs a sword to cut his adult soul away from his mother-bound soul. Australian Aboriginal initiators use that sword precisely to cut that psychic umbilical sword. The sword has the edge that cuts clinging away from love, cuts boyish bravado away from manly firmness, and cuts passive aggression away from fierceness. The Tibetans refer to such a sharp interior sword as the Vajra sword. Without it, they say, no spiritual life is possible and no adult life. Like it's just ridiculous. We don't need super weird metaphors around like swords and shit to trick men into thinking about their lives a little deeper, man. Iron John is ultimately a book that has some reasonable observations about the way men are raised and socialized in the context of broader society, the patriarchy, and capitalism, but it is completely ruined by unhelpful and racist myth-making devoid of any aggressive structural changes designed to, deflate male ego and remove the emphasis on personal change that people are expected to overcome broader systemic problems. Oh yeah, and he also says a lot of shit like this. 3 women in the house amounted to an overbalance of feminine energy for the son. And also like this, our story says that such a man needs a male mother in this world or in the eternal world to whom he can bring his 3-legged horse and from whom he can receive a horse with all 4 legs. Believe me, I would post endless passages from this book if I had the time, but unfortunately I have a broader point to make here. Speaking of which, the maybe dead former daddy of basically all men on the internet, Jordan Peterson, got even closer than Bly in pointing out systemic problems in his now rather infamous book, 12 Rules for Life. It's winner take all in the lobster world, just as it is in human societies, where the top 1% have as much loot as the bottom 30%. And where the richest 85% people, God, this is so hard. And where the richest 85 people have as much as the bottom 3.5 billion. If you're wondering what lobster world means, the entire first rule in his book is basically one big metaphor about lobsters. Just don't worry about it. It's easier that way. Irregardless of any crustacean metaphors, Peterson hits the nail on the head when directly talking about the massive inequality issues baked into the structures that we humans and lobsters have built, leading to completely unjust hierarchies. And this is why it's so fucking annoying that he also says a bunch of shit like this. The dominance hierarchy is not capitalism. It's not communism either, for that matter. It's not the military-industrial complex. It's not the patriarchy, that disposable, God, this just keeps changing. That disposable, malleable, arbitrary cultural artifact. It's not even human creation, not in the most profound sense. It is instead a near eternal aspect of the environment. Dominance hierarchies are older than trees. Patriarchy to Peterson is a disposable cultural artifact. The hierarchy is not, and therefore the implication is that fighting it is not just futile, but a category error. Don't blame capitalism, the radical left, or the inequity of your enemies. Don't recognize the state until you've ordered your own experience. Have some humility. If you cannot bring peace to your household, how dare you try to rule a city? Let your own soul guide you. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Again, similar to Bly here. There's a real argument, in this case, around how you carry yourself and how that affects how you can move through the world, and that taking some responsibility for what you can find ways to control is genuinely useful. That assessing and fixing your immediate environment and creating control is a reasonable starting point. However, set your house in order before you fix the world is not just self-improvement advice. In the context of Peterson's questionable framing, it is an instruction not to do structural critique. Rule 6, where this exists, he discusses mass shooters, men who believe that the world was irredeemably corrupt and unfair, creating the very unfortunate association in his argument that identifying structural problems and wanting to address them structurally puts you on the same spectrum as people with that worldview. People who think such things view being itself as inequitable and harsh to the point of corruption, and the human being in particular as contemptible. They appoint themselves supreme educators of reality and find it wanting. They are the ultimate critics. This doesn't even sound like somebody telling you not to do structural critique, but saying that you will become the worst kind of person if you do it. So, fix yourself first. Only then maybe go think about the world. The implicit message in this is that structural critique is nihilism with basically better branding. Like, this shit Peterson is telling you, that having critique of capitalism or the patriarchy is in effect the same kind of intellectual failure as blaming your enemies for everything, is just, I don't know, like, in effect, it's just kind of the self-help genre's core premise dressed up in Jungian mythology, that you yourself are the only variable. The framework isn't really up for discussion. Even fucking Mark Manson, the second worst one, can point out things that are fucked up in the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Stress-related health issues, anxiety disorders, and cases of depression have skyrocketed over the past 30 years, despite the fact that everyone has a flat-screen TV and have their groceries delivered. And then after this, the entire book is various regurgitations of taking responsibility for everything that occurs in your life. You see what I mean here, man? Like, these guys keep pointing out very observable real systemic problems and prescribing non-systemic solutions. For general self-help books for men or for women or whoever, that is just a fundamental flaw of the genre, because it is designed to work off convincing you that you are the problem, and this book, pretend that this is a book, has the solution. Acknowledging the systemic in any meaningful way is detrimental to the bottom line of the genre. To quote The Will Change, again, self-help books galore tell us we cannot change anyone but ourselves. Of course they never have answers to the questions that will motivate males in a patriarchal culture who have been taught that to love emasculates them to change, to choose love when the choice means that they must stand against patriarchy, against the tyranny of the familiar. You see why I keep coming back to this book, man? Like, it really has everything. Also, Manson has this line in his book. Much of the self-help world is predicated on peddling highs to people rather than solving legitimate problems. Now that is ironic. Do you see why these books for men and self-help books are effectively the same thing? Like, the narratives in these books are identical to the discussions and narratives around men and masculinity, because the emphasis on the individual is core to that idealized form men hope to achieve. Patriarchy is the default cultural operator in society, which is why many things are first and foremost tailored to men, which is why general self-help and manly self-help are the exact same thing. Brain blast. The real outlier in this whole self-help genre thing is actually self-help targeted at women, which a lot of the time tries to either do a Robert Bly's esoteric wilderness core myth-making routine, but with feminine energy type shit like Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, or put a feminine coat of paint over the same toxic capitalist individualist mythos that men slurp up under the guise of female empowerment, like Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, which is essentially the founding text of girl bossery. These books do not tell us that we can work together to change the systems that are the source of our collective agony, and this ideology has leaked everywhere, especially into the men's. Women do have an alternate to this in a rich history of feminist writings and analysis for obvious fucking reasons, and this gives them the very insight and drive to change and look at these things. But men don't have a similar alternate to parse these teachings. Like that isn't anything that's inherently built into the system. Now, I know that that isn't technically true because those feminist writings around women are also the place a lot of men should be learning them. But given the cultural and psychological barriers that I have been describing, it's like, I don't know, not really that a surprise that a lot of men kind of see that body of work as detrimental rather than positive. Something, men's rights, all feminists hate women, yada yada, whatever, fucking bad garbage. I think my analysis holds up here because basically all you need to do is look at the absolute worst men that have kept being propelled to stardom as kind of extreme versions of everything that I've been talking about. Take Clavicular, for example, the bone-smashing guy in the internet and mainstream media's hot new toy that they're gonna play with until they get bored. There's so many memes and people on the internet laughing at the misogynist, meth-doing, N-word saying 20-year-old who believes that looking good in the way that society deems most optimal is the surefire way to find success in life.
The only thing that I'm kind of talking about when I discuss, you know, looks maxing and the importance of looks is, you know, you could try your hardest not to acknowledge someone being ugly or good looking, but at the end of the day, it's a subconscious bias that everyone's gonna have, and it's unavoidable, right? So just because I know the exact facial ratios that make someone good looking or not good looking, it doesn't mean that everyone doesn't instinctually know them already.
It makes sense to me that the basic premise that society rewards attractiveness, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's kind of obvious, right? Yeah.
Now, anybody with an eye and half a brain cell can tell that he is suffering immense dysphoria, but also, we do objectively live in a society that is obsessed with lookism. We live in a society that prefers aesthetics close to this white Eurocentric ideal as we can possibly get. There are very many studies and bodies of work about how basically anything outside of a particular norm, from skin color to weight, leads to somebody being treated worse and having worse outcomes in broader society. The difference between him and other more body positive people pointing this out is that his solution is to accept and lean into it as the way things are, instead of trying to upend the system.
See, now, I would disagree and make the argument, Clav, that character, personality, maturity, intelligence are far more important than appearance. Do you think I'm wrong?
Well, bingo, there it is. But those are all perceived entirely differently, once again, based on your looks. So you're absolutely correct. You're just forgetting that key piece of nuance that is kind of the reason that my message resonates so well.
Why is this the case? Well, because there is effectively nothing in the lives of men who live like this that make them believe that they can change the system, and to a degree, even that the system is worth changing. They may be suffering under capitalism and the patriarchy, but they can still use that to an advantage because it is easier to change yourself than to change the world. And a large piece of irony, nice callback me, that I don't really see a lot of people pointing out is that Clavicular's rise to stardom with his deeply shallow ideology proves that he's right. Not only to himself, but to the thousands of men who exist in this deeply dysmorphic community. He made himself attractive, he propagated his advice, and now tons of people, including mainstream news outlets, are interested in. Why the fuck does this guy who hang out with people like Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tate have a fucking New York Times interview? What are we doing here? Complain this to how, I don't know, no one with any semblance of a life has heard of somebody like the Twitch streamer and renowned internet racist Asmongold, who has been far more relevant than Clavicular for years and years and years, growing a massive alt-right following and saying horrible shit extremely comparable or even worse than Clavicular.
These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways. It is that simple. No, I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care. I don't support them.
This might sound harsh, but Asmongold is just ugly. Like, he's ugly. So he is relegated to the spaces where only the unwashed, unlooks-maxed masses like him would care about his presence. Spaces where those unwashed masses regularly pass judgment on people, women and minorities, based purely on their appearance. Because I'm feeling particularly spicy today, I could go one step further and say that Andrew Tate reaching the level of popularity that he did with his vile existence proves a similar rightness. Andrew Tate correctly identified the fact that the primary visual cultural role for heterosexual men is the predator. This vision of men has been everywhere in our fucking media and history throughout time, ranging from something that we either glorify or brush under the rug. And it remains that way to this day as we continue to not release the fucking Epstein files and make a big ass Michael Jackson movie that ignores what a horrible person he was. All of the worst, most powerful people in the goddamn world are predators and aggressors and misogynist fuckwads, and it doesn't matter how much we pretend to believe people like Kamala Harris could win an election. Being a selfish asshole who terrorizes vulnerable people is not just a lucrative and relatively consequence-free way to live, but the way to get on top of the systems that we live in. I mean, honestly, like, is it really any surprise that so many irony-poisoned men who are raised on a slurry of hyper-individualist ideologies and their own ground-up emotions listen to dudes like Tate or Clav or anybody else that I've talked about? Like, they are giving men permission to be men in a world where a bunch of other fucking people are telling them that these toxic traits are bad and stinky, when anybody with 2 fucking brain cells can tell that those traits, you know, people like me say that we don't want, which we don't, is what the world runs on. These flesh bags of testosterone and misogyny are just pointing out the obvious to these swaths of jaded men who see these ding-dongs achieve success by doing that. You can't change the world. You can only remake yourself in its image. And clearly that fucking works. So they think they should do it too. And man, cereal, you knew we were coming back to this at some point, just like all these other examples might be weird and gross, but within the current systems we are subjected to, its message is right. Being a guy who eats regular cereal sucks ass. Being an emotionally stunted lone wolf whimsyless creatine maxer on their grind is the pathway to success in this society we have created. Which is why many women, shout out Elizabeth Holmes, also work to meet this very patriarchal standard, even at the detriment of their own well-being. This is what creates the girl boss. Women opting to adopt these male traits and trying to meet male standards as a form of empowerment. Alas though, as Kamala Harris proved, people hate women more than they like men, so that is a losing game. Also, they don't like Israel. Kamala, what the fuck is wrong with you? Which brings me to my point where I need to tell you I haven't technically been lying to you this whole time, even though it might feel like it after I say this next bit. Back at the beginning, when I said the dudes who made man cereal earlier, that wasn't a lie. Assuming you take dude as a gender-neutral word, which I do. Do you? Because if you didn't, then it's not my fault. You probably assumed that it was just men who were responsible for making such a truly incredible product, right? Well, if that's the case, then I have news for you. Man Cereal was co-founded by Dejan Rankovic and Emily Strauss. A woman. Remember that picture of the woman dumping cereal into some dude's mouth? That's them. That's the founders. Whoa. She's not just any woman either. Emily spent 5 years, 5, at Dr. Squatch, the men's personal care brand that Man Cereal explicitly names as its template. In 2025, Unilever acquired Dr. Squatch for an unreported but supposedly large amount of cash, and then she left, teamed up with Rankovic, who she also met at Dr. Squatch, and took the same formula, slapped it onto a cereal box. Does it complicate things for you, knowing that a woman not only helped architect this product, but willingly worked with the kind of men she should probably be covering her drink around? Because it should. To be clear, this isn't meant to be some kind of like huge gotcha, even though it's pretty cool. Emily Strauss might be girl bossing a little too close to the sun, but I don't think she's like that much of a villain, maybe like a little much of a villain. Ultimately, she's a marketing professional who watched an ideology-soaked formula generate extraordinary returns, learned it thoroughly, and then ran it again in a brand new category. And I think that makes this story significantly more interesting and relevant than if it were just two steroid-addled ding-dongs rubbing their remaining 2 brain cells together to poop out this cereal box. It's almost as if that explanation for something like this would be too simple. It's almost as if culture is more complicated than things might seem. It's almost as if these supposedly undesirable traits that so many people seem to mock, disdain, and be confused by their continued prevalence are normalized, commercially validated, and thoroughly embedded in not just marketing, but in society itself. And there are actually very real reasons why they remain as popular as they are. We're gonna look at them now. Oh boy, wowzers. I bet y'all didn't expect me talking about cereal would go down this route, huh? Is it fun? And also kind of a flex for me to be able to show that I can weave this charismatic web off of a stupid man product? Absolutely. But it's also kind of a little bit unfortunate because, I don't know, if somebody hadn't invented man cereal, like, there would just be some other stupid fucking product at the center of this video. Because let's be real here, if man cereal hadn't been birthed or even suddenly vanished, would that change anything about anything that I have been orating? If these largely unhelpful man books for men and shitty influencers I mentioned vanished, would that be a dub? Is the patriarchy suddenly gone now? Men have achieved enlightenment. Women have been liberated. The CEO of misogyny has been cut down? No, of course not. Of course you know it's not. That would be ridiculous. Just like how if our favorite girl boss, Emily, decided to never enter this gender-based capitalist scam arena, some other class traitor of a woman would have taken her place. Girl power. This is because the patriarchy remains in place because men and women work together, just like they work together to make man cereal. Willingly or not, that unity is necessary to keep it kicking, but it is also necessary if we want to murder it. I have been trying my very best to make sure that you, my beautiful viewer, understand that is a systemic problem. And if we want to do our best to actually solve these problems, elevate good critiques, and root out bad ones, that has to be kept front of mind. I recently read an absolutely riveting essay called Why Nice Guys Finish Last by Julia Serrano. Shout out to my boy chriswaves for the recommendation. He's brilliant and handsome, and I hate that I will never be as charismatic as he is. Please go subscribe to him. It made me think a lot about the boundaries of this systemic problem solving and what aspects need to be fully considered in order to get this full picture. In this essay, Serrano talks about how both men and women are put into double binds that are extremely difficult to navigate. And if we expect to make cognitive observations about systemic problems, we need to consider the effects of said double binds on both men and women. Take a shot every time I say systemic, and you might die. Serrano is a trans woman, and she makes the extremely valid point in regards to trans perspectives when it comes to perceiving and analyzing the gender divide. Trans perspectives can be really vital in this regard, as many of us have had the experience of moving through the world as both women and men at different points in our lives, and thus can consider the male position without undermining or dismissing the female perspectives, and vice versa. Anyways, the core discussion of Serrano's essay is the predator-prey mindset, and how it dominates society and thus complicates the lives of everyone involved. What that means is people who are perceived as men are always viewed as predators, and people who are perceived as women are always viewed as prey. This is a very tight explanation for a lot of the questionable situations and behaviors we regularly come across. Take, for example, how statutory rape cases feel different when a man versus a woman is the perpetrator, despite the fact that the same act of violation is occurring. If a high school boy is assaulted by a lady teacher, it is not uncommon to hear men say remarks akin to, "that boy was lucky," or comment on the attractiveness of the teacher, where if it were the other way around, it is largely seen as an unabashed tragedy. Shout out to Bill Maher for doing this and just kind of being a terrible person in general.
If there is not enough disturbing news in the press, and as if there are not enough disturbing studies, are you sitting down? Okay. The American Psychological Association this week, I can't get through this. They released a study that said 43% of high school and college-age boys have been coerced into unwanted sex by females. Women are forcing college and high school-age boys into having sex. Well, we hear it real time. But not just sit by and let this happen, so.
This dynamic is also why cases of man-on-man and women-on-women sexual violence can feel invisible, because predator plus predator and prey plus prey cancel out. Concern for men being around children in general is also a result of this mindset. I am terrified of kids getting near me in public, because I've had people react super fucking weirdly when I've tried to help a lost child find their adult before. This effect is compounded even more if you have darker skin and are not of the mayonnaise descendancy such as myself, because white supremacy dehumanizes all people of color to be threats and can stack with the patriarchy defaulting all men as predators. An extension of this phenomena is the very transphobic push to keep trans women and drag queens away from kids and out of the women's bathroom. Men don't need to transition to assault women in the bathroom or at all, because they do it very cissly all the time with no problems. Also, nobody ever talks about trans men being problems, or at all, really. Isn't that curious? On the flip side, the predator-prey mindset also enables the virgin/whore double bind, where women trying to be in control of their sexuality are always stereotyped and fetishized no matter what they do. Good women are always expected to be these docile, perfect virgins, but bad women who do not repress their sexualities to fit into the virgin stereotype, i.e. act like prey, are called whores. There is effectively no way for women to win. Serrano says, if a woman has embraced her sexuality, it may be personally empowering for her, but she still has to deal with the fact that others will project the whore stereotype onto her and assume that she's inviting male sexualization. In other words, a woman may be personally empowered, but she is not seen as being sexually powerful and autonomous in the culture at large. I personally think that so many men are obsessed with / angry at women for being able to profit in making adult content, shall we say, because they are benefiting from a perceived gold rush men believe was promised to them. Just post your wiener, coward. Like, what are you waiting for? Are you scared of getting judged for some reason? Anyways, in what Serrano calls the nice guy / asshole double bind, which is the penultimate discussion of the predator / prey thing, she talks about how legitimately nice guys, not the nice guy, who do not engage in the men as sexual aggressors stereotype versus the ones that do. She specifically points out that mixed messages men receive in regards to behavior that attracts women, especially in the context of heterosexual relationships. Trust me, a lot of this is going to sound very straight, so apologies for the queer people out there, but this is still important. For example, with us men from when we are wee lads all the way into adulthood, most men were and are socialized and taught to be nice and respectful to women in a variety of places. I and every other dude that I know has the same experience. Now, was it some kind of slightly sexist version of women are overly frail creatures that you have to be like super nice and respectful to, blah, blah, blah? Yeah, but the core message was still, don't be an asshole. And that main message is the thing that we took out of it, most of the time, at least. However, confusion arises when the broader cultural demand for a certain kind of behavior does not match that messaging that we were raised with. Just as women are expected to fulfill the stereotype of being sexual objects in order to gain male attention, men are expected to fill the sexual aggressor stereotype in order to gain female attention. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Like, despite teaching various forms of be nice to women, that sentiment feels way less present culturally than the mountain of garbage popping up that shows the opposite. To a degree, I think this imbalance feels even greater than it has in the past with the rise of the internet and social media over the past 20 years. Like, men being able to independently, with very little upfront cost, propagate those thoughts and ideologies themselves instead of needing larger backings represents a huge change in how these ideas are viewed and spread.
I'll give you a tip, all right? This is a bit of advice for any game developer. If you're gonna make a character that's a female, she has to be fuckable. If she's not fuckable, she can't be talking.
Oh, and this is not a call to like censor the internet or whatever. The internet isn't bad. I made a whole fucking video on this, okay? I would be remiss if I did not point out that the internet has also allowed people like myself and so many other brilliant minds to give insights to counter the swarm of dog shit, leading to that rise of inclusivity and general awareness to more younger people I spoke about. It's very cool. Took me for fucking ever to learn about a lot of this shit, and I see people under half my age who seem to know more than I do. Like, A, that's cool as fuck, and B, I'm fucking old. Just like how I pointed out earlier, why men gravitate to Clavicular et al. Some men willingly gravitate towards the role of sexual aggressor because they are rewarded for it by the women that they pursue. Just as women can gravitate to the role of sexual object because they are rewarded for doing that by men and broader culture. Now, this obviously isn't true in a lot of places, particularly in many queer ones, but let's be real, in a lot of mainstream cishet places, like, this is still desirable things for people to be, even if a lot of other people, like me, find it weird and gross. Sydney Sweeney's current moment in the spotlight is probably the best willing sexual object example that I could ask for as a compliment to the Andrew Tate Clavicular United States President willing sexual aggressor example. Release the Epstein files. How about a little bit more of a relatable example? Surely most of us here have known at least one girl, presumably straight, who has dated the most busted ass dude you could possibly imagine, pointing out how much he fucking sucks and while she complains about him and how much of an asshole she is, and only to get her heart broken and do it again and again, and you're like, dude, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Looking at you, Jamie. And then on the other side of the aisle, I have seen men turn into shitty little aggressive assholes and told them that they're being shitty little aggressive assholes, yet they don't stop being shitty little aggressive assholes because for some fucking reason, they keep coming home to the dorms with another woman again and again. I don't understand. And then they keep asking me to go sit in the common area so they can have sex in our room, in my room, but for the fucking second goddamn time this week while I'm just trying to play fucking World of Warcraft because Siege of Orgrimmar just dropped and I need to kill time-traveling orc Hitler Garros Hellscream. Or something like that. That's just a random example. Serrano specifically talks about her old friend and dorm mate Eric, who made it into adulthood being a legitimately well-mannered, respectable, nice guy, and then over time transformed into an asshole to get sexual attention from women because it worked. The things he would say sounded really dismissive to me, but often the intended recipient would just giggle in response. Suddenly he was picking women up at parties, and I'd occasionally overhear women who never knew Eric back when he was just a nice guy discussing how cute they thought he was. I saw this exact same thing happen multiple times in college, and I thought I was fucking crazy until I read this essay. To explain this, however, Serrano rejects the idea of internalized misogyny as an explanation for why these women desire or seek out men who will effectively treat them like shit, and instead frames it as externalized misogyny built off of the back of the predator-prey mindset. These women aren't all used to nor desire being treated like garbage, but are attracted to the traits that aggressors have besides the treat you like shit part. Remember, in this society reference we live in, passivity, sensitivity, harmlessness, all are concepts associated with women and thus viewed lesser compared to traits associated with men, such as aggressiveness, strength, and rebellion. Thusly, nice guys that embody those womanly traits are not succeeding in attracting women because in this society, and to a lot of women, they are not seen as real men. It's not these women's fault that they might not go after the nice guy because society reference, has programmed them not to see them as viable partners. I've heard women talk about this before. Here's a fantastic clip from R&B singer Ari Lennox, who deals her evolution over time about this.
I think I have a thing for toxic energy, so I think there's still some more healing that I need to do, because when I look back on all of these energies, it's a shame I gave them so much time and there were sweet energies that I didn't. Yeah. And so now I see those sweet energies getting married and starting families. I'm just like, dang, that probably could have been me if I recognized the security in those individuals at the time. And like now I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely feeling that now. I'm aware that there's something going on. There's something wrong. Shout out again to my boy chriswaves for that example. He's very handsome. Go subscribe to him. I hate how good he is. There's also the added dynamic of a lot of women being expected to like fix said man, which I find quite interesting because obviously women do not like this dynamic at all unless they're like weird trad wife shit. But a lot of men are also alienated by this, and not like normal men, but like the super weird kind of guys who make like sexist and racist comments like this that are portraying that women don't actually want the nice guy that they were tasked with creating. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, I could not have asked for a better example than this comic. I will say though, we have seen a rise, a lot of people getting down for the nice guys recently, the nerds, the soft boys over the years, like fucking Keyfree or Newt Scamander or David Tennant's The Doctor or whatever, which is fantastic, great, huge, great for people like me personally, but of course, obviously, we still have some larger issues to work through on what men are actually allowed to be like. You remember like some months ago when the internet just decided to go off on the whole performative male thing online, and like to a degree they're still doing it? You remember that? It was absolutely fucking crazy for me to see that so many women and men have distorted a reasonable warning of a kind of trend-hopping, predatory, left-leaning man into a completely meaningless word that is just used to do homophobia. Like, that's what this is. This is homophobia. This is against femininity. Like,
We have gone full circle here. This is the fucking horseshoe shit. We've just turned anti-femininity sentiment disguised as something to like protect women. This feels like literally hardening the walls of the patriarchy that people claim they want to break down. When a lot of men who see examples like this, like fucking eating matcha, breeding bell hooks, wired headphones, like how the fuck are men supposed to break from the toxic masculinity shit that people say they want them to get out of if they're just gonna get mocked for adopting the traits that a lot of people say that they want to have? Serrano hit me with a quote. In a world where calling a man sensitive is viewed as a pejorative, the very act of showing respect for women often disqualifies a male from being seen as a real man. I believe that this is a major reason why many heterosexual women are not sexually interested in nice guys. With this context, is it kind of any wonder why it actually seems like being an asshole works? It sucks, man. This sucks ass. I don't fucking like it either, but like, this is an incredibly important aspect of this whole kerfuffle that we cannot ignore. If these roles remain desirable and people are rewarded for occupying them, people will keep moving to fill in those roles, as long as these perceptions of what people can and cannot be remain a constant in our minds. We will not be able to move on them. That goes for men and women and everybody in between and on the outside. This framework also explains why critiques towards heterosexual men for choosing to be aggressors or heterosexual women for choosing to be objects feel kind of useless, because the demand is there for them to be those things. It's significantly more important to ask why people are attracted to those stereotypes at all. Perhaps most important, understanding the predator-prey mindset can help us to recognize that rape culture is reinforced by both people's actions and by their perceptions. The system will not be dismantled until all, or at least most of us, learn not to project the predator stereotype onto men and the prey stereotype onto women. Just as we must learn to debunk the many racist, sexist, classist, homophobic, and ageist cultural stereotypes we've absorbed over the course of a lifetime, we must also learn to move beyond predator-prey stereotypes. She talks about how challenging this can be, considering she gets harassed by men on a regular basis, as do probably every single woman ever, and says how this issue of safety absolutely must not be ignored, which is 1,000,000,000% correct. As I said before, I'm afraid a lot of men as a guy, so I cannot imagine what women must feel constantly. I do think, though, that her saying that viewing all men as predators is a convenient self-defense mechanism will keep us from moving on from the man as predator, women as prey default that we suffer from. But obviously that presents a hard balancing act I can't pretend to have an answer to make work. I am aware of and understand the yes all men sentiment, because women have to live their lives in a way that treats safety as paramount. I get that women be hating men as a system, where men be hating women as people. I and Serrano am just cautioning about making that dismissive, fearful sentiment towards men the core of one's feminism, because that makes it man-centered, and that is not what feminism is about. If we want this political project to succeed, I think we need to find a way to engage with caution while not being entirely absorbed in stereotypes. Again, don't got the answer for how we do this, and none of the women or men of any particular flavor I asked did either, despite agreeing with me, which is why I would love to hear from you, my dear viewer, on what you think the path forward is for this, because engaging in dialogue is the biggest path to finding solutions. And this is a hard ass question that is in need of a solution. We need to be careful with this shit. We gotta keep our eyes on the prize and not succumb to self-sabotaging distraction like the male-centered feminism shit, or the performative male garbage, or the most recent shit like the 62 million men rape academy CNN article that went viral while propagating insanely inaccurate fear-mongering information. It's not 62 million men. There's not an academy teaching men how to drug women. A link to a Telegram group chat with nearly 1,000 users discussing assaulting sleeping women was posted in the comment section of a fetish porn website called motherless.com. Is this absolutely awful? 100%. It's fucking horrible. But that 62 million number is not accurate. It is the monthly visit traffic for the entire website that CNN is conflating with the presence of an unrelated group chat. Not even adjusting for the fact that half of all internet is bots these days. I'm linking a really great video by Taylor Lorenz and Kat Tembarge about how this questionable reporting was blown up by influencers who are succumbing to the exact same perception problem that I and Serrano am discussing right now, to the point of sabotaging their own movement by advocating for a pro-censorship and reactionary politics that offers explicitly non-systemic solutions. To quote Kat Tembarge from the video,
"It feels to me like psychological warfare against women to make us really frightened and scared and more in favor of reactionary politics that are ultimately against our best interests." Like, it feels very insidious, because I spoke to women in the weeks after this article came out who were genuinely very frightened at what they believed to be true. And it just is so unfortunate, because it distracts us and deflects from a lot of real systemic issues and points us in the direction of fake solutions that are actually going to hurt us.
Instead of taking the opportunity to responsibly discuss the insidiousness of rape culture, CNN gifted bad faith misogynist ammo to pull men away from feminism because they misrepresented the numbers, the framing, and shifted the focus away from the very real organized acts of assault being caused to putting blame on a fetish website. And to be extra clear, Motherless does have a history of hosting some exploitative kinds of content. This isn't a wholesale defense of the website. I'm just saying everything here is overblown. There is and has been existing evidence of way larger versions of Telegram group chats outside of the one CNN found, also unrelated to websites like Motherless, but still nothing close to that 62 million number, which is what makes it even more disappointing that the very real problem of women being drugged and taken advantage of was distorted in this situation for clicks. People like Layla Mickelwaite, who is an anti-porn right-wing religious extremist, is trying to use outrage like this to convince people that building a surveillance state and legally censoring the internet is the good and correct move to do, including fighting to remove Section 230, the thing that makes the internet work. People like her and her obviously religious 503c are trying to massively distort and overinflate the connection between sex trafficking and the adult content industry, so they can erase the line between consensual and non-consensual sex acts in order to get all adult content taken down under the guise of stopping sexual violence. And this is so unbelievably dangerous, because removing the distinction between something like sleep fetish content on motherless.com versus people actually drugging and assaulting women actively makes it harder for real victims of these crimes to be seen and prosecuted and get justice for the victims. Shit like this protects abusers. Like the people in the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. I have heard complaints from people who believe that scrutinizing the numbers shouldn't matter, that any assault is too many. And to the second half of that sentiment, I 100% agree. Until we are at 0, that number is too much. I disagree with the first half of that sentiment though, because reactionary sentiments towards the problem keep us from properly understanding the genuine scale, which can be a huge detriment to actually addressing it. Taylor Lorenz, in that video I mentioned before, makes a great point about this.
I also think that the number and the scale and the way that they make it seem so mechanized is meant to kind of disenfranchise people and make it so that they don't need to take action. Like a couple hundred men in a group chat is actually something that people could meaningfully take action on. But 62 million men feels overwhelming. It feels like, well, then we need a law, right? We need somebody in power to step in. And it's like, no, actually, it's just that you found like actually a pretty small group of men. Now they're scattered around the world. It would be hard for you to do something about it in America, but you could call the local precincts in these different countries and probably get a lot of these men arrested if they were actually doing something wrong.
Every single sexual assault is a crime we need to take seriously, but saying that 62 million is a real number when it is a percent of a percent of a percent is not handling it seriously. The situation is fucked up as it is, both for the victims that we have learned about and for the countless that we never ever will. And that is why we cannot act in ways that effectively allow us to write off patriarchy, men, and rape culture as this nebulous evil beyond our ability to measure, impact, and improve. That this is just how things are and we have to deal with it. For me, this is the probable worst effect of the predator-prey dynamic. The removal of discussion around men and women as stereotypes that can be changed. In her infinite wisdom, Bell Hooks also had notes on this from over 20 years ago. Indeed, even the radical feminist labeling of all men as oppressors and all women as victims was a way to deflect attention from the reality of men and our ignorance about them. To simply label as oppressors and dismiss them meant we never had to give voice to the gaps in our understanding or to talk about maleness in complex ways. We did not have to talk about the ways our fear of men distorted our perspectives and blocked our understanding. Hating men was just another way to not take men and masculinity seriously. It was simply easier for feminist women to talk about challenging and changing patriarchy than it was for us to talk about men. What we knew and what we did not know about the ways we wanted men to change. Better to just express our desire to have men disappear, to see them dead and gone. That's the crux of my point here. While I can never, again, fully understand the extreme alienation and fear many women live under, I can understand that not having complex and difficult discussions about generally both halves of the population won't move the needle as fast as we want it to. I was once upon a time a deeply frustrated young man looking for discussions around men and masculinity and people like me, and only seeing stuff about feminism and women, and I was like, come on, man, brother, dog, where's my man insight, you know? And then many moons later, years later, I accidentally stumbled into learning about feminism and women and systemic stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And now, because time is a flat circle, after drinking from the well of feminism for many years, I am surprisingly back in a similar place, wondering where my good man insight is. But not in the like weird misogynist men's rights kind of way, in a complex feminist socio-cultural analysis kind of way. And in my quest to find it, I have learned that so many other people are too, many of which are handling it significantly worse than I am. The bone smashing, writing self-help books, hating women online by making a shit ton of videos about dumb bullshit. Like, that is way more damaging and weird than making a video essay that's a dramatic deconstruction of a misogynist breakfast product to trick people into thinking about how we discuss men in broader society. Just kidding, actually. This is actually just about cereal. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. We're changing it live. We're doing it live, Bill O'Reilly style.
We'll do it live.
But get this bitch out of here. In terms of practicing what I've been preaching, I had a whole funny haha bit for the end, but you know what, man? In the interest of not masking sincerity with a fear of vulnerability, we're just gonna get rid of all the funny haha editing and shit for the conclusion, because fucking That's what, like, my whole platform is. Look at this legitimately serious thing that I want to talk about, that I feel the need to mask in humor and what the fuck ever else, to try and trick people to be interested into the things I'm actually talking about. So yeah, this isn't actually about man cereal. But I will admit, though, it is still a really good jumping off point to talk about all of these men's issues and how they're part of a broader systemic problem. Because, like, straight up, man, I feel like it can be hard to have legitimate conversations about men's issues because so much of the rhetoric and broader discussion has been poisoned online by the red pillars and the misogynist and, like, the general brand of dork, and just make it really, really difficult to actually dip into the nuance of what some men might be going through. And as per the theme of the video, we have to do it. I've wanted to do this for a while, and I'm hoping here at the end I did this about as responsibly as I could, which is in part why I had many lovely men, women, and neither read through this script, because particularly in things like the fourth part, I thought there was room for me to get canceled for some shit in there. But thankfully, they all thought that it was really good and important and nuanced, and I hope you did too. Anyways, at the beginning I asked 3 questions. Why does man cereal exist? Why can't I find this particular flavor of book? And what exactly is going on with men? And the answer to the first 2 is pretty simple. Like, man cereal has to exist because it is fulfilling the cultural role that those books should. Like, if I'm being honest, it's kind of impossible for this fantastical man book that I'm looking for to exist right now, just like it's impossible for man cereal to not exist, because our collective understanding of men and masculinity has been so consistently distorted and suppressed because it is profitable. It sucks ass. And the answer to the third question is a lot. There's a lot that is going on with men, because there's a lot going on with everybody. But in my personal opinion, I think one of the reasons less than ideal progress is being made on the man front, you know, particularly looking at a lot of the presidential polls from last time, it's because we are and have been missing more positive, widespread, radical thought around men specifically, that is at least more accessible than it is now. And yes, I am aware that part of this is on a lot of men for not actually listening to what is out there already. But simultaneously, all of us in this space can consciously expand the limits of our discussion to hopefully encourage more men to intentionally engage rather than accidentally stumbling into feminism and seeing that it's actually pretty neat. Exactly like me. Like, if there was a little bit more of this available when I was younger, like, I feel like my trajectory would have been different, just straight up. And for realsies, like, that is a legitimately hard task. Like, I don't want to downplay this here. Like, writing this video alone and, like, reading all of these insane books and also really good pieces of writing like Julius Franz's essay pushed my limits for how I need to think about finding answers to this broader fucked up situation that we all live in, from figuring out how to maneuver uncomfortable contradictions that kind of plague both men and women's lives, to coming to terms with the fact that some of the worst, most annoying people you know could be right about some things, even if the solutions that they're seeing are absolute fucking dog water. If we want to fix this gendered hellscape that we are in, we need to look seriously in places that we might not want to look or find utterly ridiculous or just straight up uncomfortable, because there are shared frustrations everywhere that we can all bond over. The framing just has to be right. I am dead serious when I say these words, in that we need to talk about men more, with more complexity, with more intentionality, and more positive, inclusive ways, so that we can properly assess and create solutions for everybody involved without downplaying the power dynamic that women have to deal with, without downplaying their safety. And that isn't man-centric feminism. Like that's just feminism. And I specifically say we here because I'm just one neurodivergent white bisexual he/they on the internet doing my best to articulate my perspective that has been molded from absorbing so many things from so many other people. Like there's so much to talk about in this broader landscape that more than anybody, including me, could hope to include in a single video. And I can only do my best to provide insight that can fit into this broader web of unified knowledge about men and how they fit into the broader feminist project. Which is why it's so important for you, dear viewer, to go and listen to other people who are not me, but obviously still listen to me for the watch time. And also for those of you who are not like me to be able to share those experiences for other people like you. I can't speak for women or for agender people or for fucking many of the countless perspectives on different kinds of men who can contribute to this topic, like men of color, ace men, trans men, disabled men, immigrant men, like you fucking name it. There's so many other people who are important to hear from because hearing those voices and seeing they exist is part of how we move forward, develop unity, and then change the system. Ideally, that would be cool. Also, to release the fucking Epstein files. Like straight up, I didn't even know bisexuality was like a thing until I was 18. I didn't know that ace and aromantic shit was a thing until I was in my 20s. Same deal with non-binary stuff. Basically just like such a vast amount of queer shit I had no fucking idea until like 8 years ago. I never really had the opportunity or the access to learn about like legitimate histories of like people of color or feminism or queerness until my mid-20s when I first took an alternate history class about those groups in college, which was fantastic class, by the way, would absolutely recommend. But things like that shouldn't be relegated to an optional class in college. They should be integrated into the main ones all throughout our fucking other schools. That visibility is so incredibly important, and media and art play such a massive role in this, from seeing all flavor of people in concerts to shows to books to movies to games to social media. Like that visibility is how we show people they exist, are valid, and that there is a place for them to ideally keep getting sucked into the bad places. For example, I've been on a manga kick recently, and I just gotta say, man, reading Witch Hat Atelier, that shit is a pleasure front to back. It's fucking goated. Straight up though, I can't not point out how sick it is to see a main cast of 2 adult men and 4 young girls and have it not be fucking weird. Like, it's not weird. It's normal and it's wholesome and it's great. And like, that's even more impressive considering it's in like the manga anime space, because Jesus fucking Christ, do they love to make that shit weird all the time. The Hades games also have an incredible cast of characters like our bisexual icon Zagreus. Shout out to the Murderbot books for being our ace arrow icon. Murderbot, Our Flag Means Death, is this fantastic show of gay pirates, which I really wish it got a good season. Man and His Cat has like the rare old man protagonist, and like, again, I've said it a bajillion fucking times, it's one of the best things I've ever read and everybody should read it. Positive masculinity. Positive masculinity. And then there's the flip side of this, is being able to engage with characters who don't fucking look like you. Like 2 of the most impactful pieces of media I've engaged with this year have been a game called Cairn and a book called Boulder, both about lesbian disasters. And I am only one of those things. Their struggles with intimacy and communication and burying themselves in their work to avoid having to deal with things were deeply relatable experiences to me. And I just really pity people who see a character that doesn't look like them and then immediately think that they can't identify with it or refuse to identify it. Because particularly so many groups who aren't cis, straight, white men have been identifying with characters and people who do not look like them for fucking ever. Shout out gamers for being little babies about this. Seeing and making these creations that show worlds outside of the norm teach us that not only we are valid and allowed to exist, but how to identify with and learn from people who are not like us. Most importantly though, I think it shows that things can be different if we work together to make that happen. Those lessons can be really fucking hard and uncomfortable. And honestly, they will literally never end. But ideally, after each one, we will be a little wiser, a little more understanding and empathetic of each other, and hopefully filled with a little bit more whimsy, okay? No more fucking empty apartments. Get some decorations, for Christ's sake. For the patriarchy to be dismantled, we need to keep propagating a version of feminism that is constructed in part from a positive vision of masculinity, rather than being predicated on excising its detriments. To quote my goat, John Dewey, there is always the danger in a new movement that in rejecting the aims and methods of that which it would supplant, it may develop its principles negatively rather than positively and constructively. Then it takes its clue in practice from that which is rejected instead of from the constructive development of its own philosophy. Thank you, big man Dewey. Men, including me, need more resources and discussion like that. And I wish it wasn't so fucking irritating to actually find it. But instead, I found fucking man cereal. We do not need to live in a world where it exists. We can live in a world where I can go to any fucking bookstore and find that super special awesome man book without much effort at all. Where men do not have to accept that floor TVs and having outside chairs as inside chairs is good and normal. We can live in a world where self-improvement can be completely disentangled from misogyny and capital. And I like to believe that one day we can do that. Oh, right. Fuck, of course. Also, man cereal tastes like shit. It's here. Thank you to the Patreoners and the subscribers and all that. Hit all of the buttons. And now, for the first time on camera, I'm going to be opening and actually trying man cereal. Oh my God. Isn't this a fucking momentous occasion? Wow. Wow. Oh my God. It's actually here. Holy fuck. Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah. There's this like, I don't know if it'll show up, but there's the like weird fucking, this like weird like crumb thing in the corner of the box. I don't know like what the fuck that is. It's on every box. It's on every fucking box. Yeah, that's just like an element for some fucking reason. And yes, I did get the variety pack of all three. The fruity, loud, juicy, legendary, maple, sweet, smoky Sigma, and salted fudge classic decadent dominating. Weehoo. Okay, where do we start? I feel like we gotta start with the maple bacon. Okay. Ready? These boxes feel kind of cheap. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Oh wow. This is not as much cereal as I fucking expect. Each box is $20, by the way. $20 fucking dollars. So let's, oh wow, look at that. It doesn't even like reach all the way to the fucking top like you'd see in like fucking Reese's Puffs or whatever. They just use like a tiny ass fucking bag. Damn, dude. All right. I am getting like a little bit of maple in there. But no, I'm not really getting bacon. I'm getting like dog food. Pour a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't want to use 3 fucking balls for each one. So I'm just gonna use one and then have a little milk. And then pour her in. Yeah, pour her in. Come to daddy. All right, let's see. Here we go. The first mouthful of man cereal. I can feel myself getting more misogynistic already. I don't know how they've managed to do it, but they've like kept the chalkiness from regular creatine into like the cereal form. God, credit where credit is due. I feel like the maple is like for sure kind of there, but then oh god, it like fucking covers your mouth. Oh my god, it's horrible. But like whatever they used for the bacon, that is like that is not it, man. Like it like that I'm actually getting like hints of dog food. That is not it. That is absolutely hints of like corn chip, like Dorito, perhaps. Oh my god. Oh no, I can't finish this one. I can't. That was like remarkably unpleasant. Holy shit. Let's do fruity, because that's the closest to what I can identify with. Okay, I mean, I feel like it's reasonably hard to fuck up fruity, and to a degree fudge. Like those are pretty easy thing. Like the maple bacon, I'll give them credit for being ambitious, but holy fuck, man, that was not good. That was not good at all. Again, tiny ass bag. Let's see. There's a little tear in it. Was that intentional? Wait, hold on. Did I miss it in the last one? Let me check the fudge. Look how, whoa, I know I'm like skipping ahead because I wanted to check to see if this bag was like torn or not, but look at the difference here. Like there feels like there is significantly like a actual like size difference here. Am I tripping? Like, hold on. That's super awkward. That's super fucking weird, dude. Holy shit. Like half of this bag is empty. That's insane, dog. Okay. I gotta get back on track. Okay. It smells fruity? Like a kind of candy. What kind of candy? Fuck, I know that smell. It isn't like a Starburst or a Skittle. It's like one of those really like cheap off-brand candies that's like vaguely fruity in a really nondescript way that doesn't really feel like an individual fruit, but like an amalgamation of all fruit, or some guy who's never had fruit imagining what fruit smells like. Okay, round two. It's really hard. Like the cereal is really hard, even without milk. God, there's that fucking caking on the mouth again. It tastes like somebody thought about Fruit Loops in like the apartment next door. Like this tastes like the La Croix of cereals trying to be fruity. Like there is an air of fruitiness in it. Like it smells more intense than it actually tastes. It isn't like actively uncomfortable to eat like the maple bacon one. It's just like kind of nothing. I don't know. It's really disappointing. I was able to finish the second bowl of the little bit that I added. So it's already a dub for the fruity over the maple bacon. God, it's like the fucking Sandman ejaculated into my mouth. It's fucking awful. Okay. Salted fudge. Classic, decadent, and dominating, baby. I am None of those things. All right. It smells like I just straight up opened a one of those little tubs of like chocolate powder you use for cooking. It's like really intense. To the point where it's like honestly a little uncomfortable. Okay, let's see. Fucking third time's the friggin' charm. As long as this isn't actively unpleasant, I'll take this as a dub. Wait, no. Salted fudge. Down the hatch. Oh. Oh, it gets worse the longer you chew it. Oh my god. Like, it like starts out, there's honestly like this kind of pleasant, like, milk chocolatey type of experience. And this just, you know, might be me, but I don't really like dark chocolate. And I feel like the more you go into it, the longer you chew it, the like more bitter and intense it gets. And by the end, like, it almost tastes like I took a sip of coffee. And I hate coffee. Holy shit. That is really unpleasant. Oh my god. What the fuck? That's really bad. Okay. Let's see. If I were to put these in order from best to worst, I would say for sure the fruity one was the best. And then I actually don't know which I would put last. Like, I feel like I at least had fleeting moments of pleasantness with each of these, with the smell of the maple and the initial nice hint of light chocolate. But then it just gets worse and transitions into dog food and like coffee beans. And like, I don't know. I feel like I hate coffee more than dog food. So best, awful, also awful. But mind you here, I mean best, I mean mediocre, like barely palatable. Overall, the texture is very unpleasant. I did not enjoy having to, each time I took a fucking bite, wash my mouth out with milk to get the cakey creatineness out from within my teethies. It was incredibly unpleasant. Yeah, ma'am. This shit tastes like ass. Sorry. I don't know what we expected here, but I guess this is what men want. So that's cool. I guess it's good to know that this cereal is good until April of 2027. So, cool. This is horrible. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Unless the cereal kills me between now and then. Okay, goodbye.